Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eirik Arnesen. Welcome to my studio in Florence, Italy. This is a new tutorial series which will focus on casting in acrylic resin, particularly the brand Hydro-Resin. So we are in many ways on our last step before we get to close this mold. This is the fiberglass step, and this is where things have a tendency to get very messy, and we have to handle the fiberglass and the resin. This is one of those steps which has people stressed out and rushing around and making a mess of their work. Don't do that. Keep it slow and keep it simple. The resin can always have a little bit more liquid component added, which will prolong its working time, so you don't really have to worry about the resin setting up on you. I have a very simple way of trying to keep things under control as best as I can, and it starts with the workflow, or the process, if you will. First and foremost, have your materials at the ready. This does not only mean have them close to you, prep everything that can be prepped before beginning. I usually have all my fiber cut close to the dimensions I think I need them at, and I usually lay them down inside the mold while cutting them so I know that I'm going to have the coverage that I expect, and I know where each piece needs to go. Small changes will need to be made, so I have some fiberglass and a pair of scissors close to me, so those changes can be made fast and easily. This is also the step where you probably want to switch gloves every now and then, as messy gloves here can be a bit of a pain. You'd want clean hands when using the scissors, as resin will dry on the scissor handle, causing your scissors to turn into a torture device, which scratches the bejesus out of your knuckles. You will bleed doing this. So, have your glove box close by so you can switch to a new pair of gloves fast should you need to. There are multiple ways to go about this, and some are much more messy than others. One way to do it is to brush the resin into the fiber outside the mold and then lay it down inside the mold. I find that this technique works really well if you're two people who can work together. It's very fast when you have two people, as one of you is brushing resin into the fiber and the other lays it down inside the mold. However, I'm only one person, and trying to do it this way solo is an absolute mess in my experience. In general, doing it this way is a mess. My solution is a little bit slower perhaps, but suits a one-man band really well and keep things much more clean and organized. I like to brush fresh resin into the mold first. I don't brush everywhere as I can't lay down fiber that fast. I pick an area where I think I can lay down the fiber everywhere before the resin dries, and I brush that area with fresh resin. Balancing how liquid this resin is important. If it's too liquid, then the fiberglass won't stick really well to the surface, it'll just slide around. If the resin is too thick, it will set up a little bit too fast on you. I brush an area with resin and make sure I get complete coverage. Any empty spots might end up as dry fiber against dry resin, which does us no good. Fiberglass is then laid down into the wet resin and tamped down well, either with a brush or with hands and fingers. Both work really well. There's no reason to go over the fiberglass with wet resin right now. It will only cause it to move around on you. And we can do it later once the fiberglass and the resin we put down now is set up. For now, make sure the resin lays down without any space in between the splash coat and the fiberglass. These air pockets become weak spots which you can punch through from the outside of your cast once the mold is open. It's important that the fiberglass lays down on the resin surface really well and that it sticks everywhere. In order for the layer of fiberglass to be unified into one strong layer and not a bunch of separately strong pieces, every piece of fiber that's laid down inside the cast must overlap each other. This way, we get an interwoven layer of fiberglass that won't have any weak spots where it can break. The edges where two pieces of fiberglass overlap is brushed over with resin so that we don't have dry fiber laying over the top of dry fiber. Doing it this way means they won't stick to each other, and the overlap doesn't do anything for us. They won't adhere to each other. While doing this, I always try to stay a few millimeters from the edge of the mold. Fiberglass and resin gets very hard, and any pieces that poke over the edge will need to be sanded or dremeled down so the mold can close later. We do want a really strong edge, however, so I get as close as I can, and I also trim the fiberglass very neatly and evenly in order for it to get as close to the edge of the mold as I can possibly manage, and so that I get as much fiberglass as close to the edge as I can possibly manage. I want it really close for strength, but not over the edge, as this only creates more work for myself later down the line. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, consider liking it and subscribing to the channel for more videos. I put out a new video every Thursday, so stay tuned for next week. If you want to support the channel, watch the full 1-hour video, which this is an excerpt from, filled to the brim with instruction and in-detail descriptions of what is going on. Visit the link to my Patreon page in the description below the video to learn how. Until then, stay creative, and I hope to see you in the next one.